I'm, a pretty relaxed guy. It takes like a hell of a lot to make me angry or anything like that. So I'm pretty good at meeting people and making friends. I like to kind of always have a good time. I'd like to keep negative energy away from me as much as possible, especially if I'm with someone. Usually all my negative stuff comes when I'm alone. I guess that's it. I don't really know how to describe myself now.
Psychotropic presents Cam.
What was it like growing up for you?
So I was born in San Bernardino, California, which people that know of it, it's a rough area. It's like it's always top 10 worst places to live in the United States. So that's where I was born, and my dad at the time was a meth dealer, and then my mom they were really young. My dad was 22 and my mom was 21 when they had me, and they were both kind of in their party phase. My mom especially, big party girl, lots of drug use. And then like my dad was not just a regular meth, he was a pretty big time meth dealer in San Bernardino. And that just kind of caused in the beginning, I was living with my parents, or my dad was kind of halfway around. They were never married. It's like it's what I was told, that I feel weird saying it to people because it's like a shocking thing, but I was told that I was the kind of the last chance for my mom to get pregnant if she had an abortion, she wouldn't be able to get pregnant again, is what the doctors told her. So I was number 7. A possible aborted kid. I didn't find that out till later on, but this is just they were not ready to have a child at that time. And then so as I got a little older, I kind of started noticing like stuff around. And it was like there's a lot of negative things I could say about living in a meth house. It was just lots of people always coming over, looking for drugs, looking for my dad, wondering where he is. Cops coming over all the time, also looking for my dad or for anyone, other people. Yeah, lots of kind of violence and yelling and screaming and stuff that comes with in the territory of meth. But there's also lots of good times. Like meth heads are kind of fun to hang out with sometimes, and I'd get some really unique toys and stuff brought to my house that I had no idea where the hell these things came from. I remember one house we lived in. I was about probably 5. We had this huge tree in the backyard, and on my birthday, we had this guy come over, and he had like a truckload of McDonald's slides, like the play area stuff, and he hung them up in my tree to where I could crawl in kind of this tunnel that spiraled up throughout my tree, and everything kind of hung with straps from it. That is just like one, if I can think of some of the good memories from that area, that time, that was one of them. Another one is like a bunch of guys showed up. There was constantly people in and out of my house, but a bunch of guys showed up one day with a truckload of stolen payphones, and we took the everybody took the payphones off the truck, and they were all breaking into them, getting all the quarters out and coins and all that. And they're like, gave me a screwdriver and a hammer. They're like, as many as you can get into, you can keep the quarters. And so that was a fun day. And then just spent all of it on candy. When I look back at it, I know there's a lot of negative stuff, but it's kind of hard to forget about all the fun I had. And because people, when they're on drugs, I think they feel like a kid also. So when there's a kid around, they are interested in hanging out with me and playing with toys and all that.
So, was there a moment when you kind of realized that things were different in your household than in your friends' households?
I would say no. I didn't think, like, obviously I knew stuff was different, but I don't think I realized how different everything was until I actually graduated from high school and went to college. I think that time in my life was I was able to kind of process everything and realize, like, hey, the way I grew up was weird. And I started noticing, like, I get jealous of my friends that had kind of that really structured family lifestyle. But I didn't really feel that jealousy until college. But I also think because when I left in 8th grade and I moved to Bridgeport and that was a way of, like, kind of me escaping from all this drama that was happening down here, and everybody thought I'd kind of fall right in line with everybody else down here, so they sent me away. And then when I went up there, I don't know, I didn't really hang out with people that much, so I wasn't in other people's homes that often. And then my friends' houses that I would hang out with, they weren't that much better off than me. But when I got to college, I started seeing, like, oh, some people had it really good.
Would you say that your childhood had a mostly negative or mostly positive influence?
Yeah, negative. I wanted to get kind of the positive stories out of the way, because there is, and right now I'm in therapy, and I'm working through all these traumas and diagnosed with PTSD from a lot of stuff, because there's stories of, like, I would see my mom get beat all the time, not just by my dad plus other people. My dad wasn't the only meth head she was seeing at the time. My mom had, like, this, I don't know, she really loved dating guys fresh out of jail, prison guys, really rough around the edges guys like that. So seeing all that, it kind of, like, I've been dealing with it lately in my own relationship, where it's like I don't know what a functioning relationship looks like, so I'm kind of making everything up as I go.
You had mentioned in your email that you suffer from depression. Does your depression stem from your childhood, do you think?
Yeah. So right now I've been in therapy for about 6 months, and it's the first time I've kind of went and tried to work through things. To me, before, my childhood was all this, like, kind of jokey. I would joke about stuff. Like, you guys don't, I had a fucked up childhood, don't you guys know? Like, oh, what? You, like, your mom did what for you? Oh, I used to have to drive my mom drunk. And I kind of turned everything into, like, a joke. And that's kind of how I felt about it for a while. Now I'm in therapy going through some of the things that happened. And, well, let me just say the reason I'm in therapy in the beginning is because I have constant suicide ideation. And it's just something that I would just think about killing myself every single day. all day long. And I'm still dealing with that. I'm still working through it. Never any like plans or anything, but just the wildest ways I think about how I'm gonna die or kill myself, and all these violent ways when I'm not a violent person at all, to where I would have to keep myself distracted. And like, keeping myself distracted is really hard. I would be playing a video game. If you see my room, I have 3 screens around me right now and a laptop. So I'd play a video game while watching a movie, and then sometimes if it's not enough, I'll throw a podcast on somewhere else. So constantly there's something distracting me no matter what, because when there's nothing around, my head kind of goes back into that space. And it has to be from something. I mean, something has to cause me to think about this all the time. And I tend to go back to my childhood, just trying to figure out why my brain is the way it is and what happened to me. And yeah, it turns out trauma's real and it fucks you up.
Do you have any theories, or have you talked with your therapist about potential reasons why your childhood may have affected you in this way?
No, but I should. And what I've kind of realized is that when you're in a constant struggle as a kid, that will stick with you no matter what. If you're in a constant struggle now, all these things kind of get into your brain and they form little homes, and where you have to kind of figure out ways to kick them out, I guess. And that's always been a big problem for me, is because a lot of times thinking back about my childhood, I think about all the good things and the love and the good times. And I've kind of forgotten about all the bad things, which are still there in my body, even if they're not at the top of my thinking. They're still in there, kind of helping me form the ideas I do now, which also happens to be thinking about killing myself 24/7.
So, with those thoughts, you find that heavy distraction helps, but it only helps to a certain extent because you found yourself, you've had to go to a therapist, right?
Yeah, and I just, I can't keep distracting myself. Because it just leads, sometimes I need to sit down and focus on something, and I can't do that if I'm trying to distract myself with entertainment or anything, just to get that stuff out of my head. So causes me to really slack on a lot of things I need to do, because sitting down and focusing on something causes those thoughts to come shooting in, especially if I'm trying to do something creative or to benefit myself. Those thoughts kind of come in a lot stronger when I'm trying to do something to make my life better, I guess. So I went from this kind of crazy drug-filled San Bernardino life to where, and I'm seeing people die by all kinds of means. One guy, he was killed by the police, and he was always over at our house. I think it was like a suicide by cop kind of situation. And then drug overdoses. My uncle killed himself, suicide. My dad went to prison. He was caught. And then my mom was really struggling. She was a bartender and also still an addict. All this, which kind of pushed me to my grandparents, my grandma. She was a single grandma. And I lived with her through my middle school years, and kind of got slightly a bit like someone's checking it to make sure I do my homework and taking me to school. And I was going to the dentist for the first time, and I was going to the doctor. And so I like got a couple of years right there of, I guess, of fairly normal. But then I'm still having to deal with like, okay, we're going to go visit my dad in prison and stuff like that. So I really, I don't want to put this. So I have a brother also. I do want to put this in. My brother, when we were kids, we were seeing all this stuff happen around us, and we'd always tell each other, like, we're never doing drugs. We're never going to do drugs. Like, I want nothing to do with this lifestyle. And he was right there beside me. And then as we got a little bit older, he started smoking weed, and I still didn't want anything. I wasn't smoking weed or anything like that. So that's me at 10, 11, 12. And then I moved to Bridgeport, California, and I joined the football team first thing. And the town had 600 people, and the high school had 100 kids in it. But it was a super kind of sports centric high school, and I was really interested in playing sports, so I put my all into it. Sports. I didn't want to drink, smoke, do drugs, anything. I was all just trying, like, training, going to school, getting good grades so I could play, and yeah, doing a really good job out there. And then I'd come back to San Bernardino for the summers, and I'd see my brother, and he's kind of creeping down this line. I remember my freshman year summer, so summer after my freshman year of high school, I came back and for summertime, and I was just hanging out with my brother. We're skateboarding around San Bernardino, and then like he's smoking weed. He starts smoking weed, and then he's like picking up cigarette butts off the ground, smoking them, which is kind of normal for the lifestyle we're in. Like that, if I were telling that to like my mom or anyone that was around, they'd be like, yeah, like, yeah, they smoked all the way to the butt. So it was always icky to me, but this one moment, really, I'll never forget about it, is we were skateboarding around and we stopped by at his friend's house, and we were sitting in his garage, and they wanted to get fucked up, and they didn't have anything, so they huffed Raid, the roach killer, and I didn't do it, but I watched them, and it was like the most disgusting thing that I've ever seen. I could smell it. I just couldn't believe somebody's doing that to themselves. And it's my brother who, like we said, we would never do this. And here he is huffing Raid in a dirty garage. So that was kind of the last time I really wanted to, hang out with my brother, and I missed him. But it just put like a really bad taste in my mouth. Especially since I was in high school and like my headset was totally different. I was really judgmental then about it, and I feel bad because I kind of stopped talking to him after that. But yeah, so that's where I'm super anti-drugs is what I'm trying to put off, because like to me, drugs is something that ruins your life and you'll never amount to anything and stuff like that. But then, so I decide to go to this college, a small junior college in Northern California, and I'm going to play baseball there. And so I go, and two of my friends go to the college with me. And my one friend, Drew, he was like Republican, super anti-weed. It was like, he's funny. And then my other friend Brad, he had done pills before in high school. He had gotten actually expelled from our high school and then brought back because there's no other place for him to go in the town we lived in. For like somebody told them they sold them pills or something at school. But yeah, so the three of us, we end up going to this tiny junior college together, and we all get put in the same dorm. And then Oh, I forgot to mention my girlfriend that I was dating with at the time. She didn't go to college, but she was always like staying in the dorm visiting and stuff. And she was super anti-weed too. I'm from like a small town where you're either super hippie or super Republican against everything. And that's kind of how her and Andrew were. They were friends. But then, so we meet our neighbors in the dorm next to us, and they're soccer players. And they're kind of all from all over, but the main one we became friends with, he's from Chico, and they smoked weed a lot. And we were like 18, like, all right, let's try it out. So we started smoking weed with them, and Andrew totally flipped the script on everything he believed in. And yeah, so we kind of started smoking a little too much weed. It turned into just like a night thing to kind of an everyday thing. We were doing that and then going to school at the same time. I'm trying to remember before I had tried shrooms, and yeah, college was just a crazy kind of party time for me. So I was trying all kinds of stuff. Before I tried shrooms, we had done Ecstasy, and that was our first kind of non-weed introduction into the drug world. And there's nothing to do up there, no clubs or anything like that when we did it. So we just all did Ecstasy and sat around the house together. I had like 6 roommates, and we all did it at the same time. And man, I feel like I learned their entire life story that one night. We probably did it at 6 p.m. and like we're awake until the sunrise the next day, just talking to each other, having such a great time. I remember I was standing on a skateboard, shifting back and forth for what felt like 5 minutes to me, but my friend's like, "You've been on that skateboard for an hour. Are you all right?" Like, yeah, I'm fine. But yeah, none of those. I think what like we became so much closer, the 6 of us, that I still, they live all halfway across the country. Some of them, none of us live near each other, but we still talk to each other every single day. And I don't think that would have happened if we didn't like all do Ecstasy together that one night. I don't think I'd have these friends for as long as I have. We're going on like 10 years now. They've been friends with me. So
you entered into college kind of like, I'm not doing anything. I came from a household that was drug heavy, and I'm not going to allow myself to go down that path. Yeah. But then slowly you started to allow certain things in, like weed, and then eventually that turned into ecstasy.
And when I first tried Ecstasy, I had not known anything about it. When I thought of Ecstasy, I thought it was like its own thing. I didn't realize there was all these things mixed into it. So when like I wasn't very happy to hear that I had probably done meth, because who knows what it's cut with, and it's usually meth, I guess. And yeah, I did feel a bit dirty after that, realizing that. And yeah, I'm not big into Ecstasy, I guess. And this time I'm also kind of realizing, like I had done Ecstasy and I had done it a couple times before I really realized it was meth. And I'm noticing, like myself, I don't really have that addictive gene that I've seen just destroy people in my life. Like I could drink and have a good time, but I wasn't wanting to drink every single night. And I could smoke weed and have fun, but it wasn't ever like a me needing to do it thing. Everything was kind of positive. And I think that has a lot to do with the people around me. Never felt like we were destroying ourselves or anything like that I had pictured in my head. Yeah, so like I'm slowly starting to become okay with it. And also at the same time, well, like speaking of my depression, as a kid, there were times that I could think back and realize like, oh, I was having some problems. Like I remember in 8th grade time, like 12 years old, 13, my grandma would have to take me to work with her because I would get out of school and then I'd have to go there and wait for her to finish. And she's like a workaholic. So we'd stay there till sometimes 8 o'clock at night and I'd draw or do whatever. But I'd realize I'd hear this screaming in my head when I would like kind of let myself be bored. So I think that's like one of the early signs of my depression showing up. And then it kind of skipped me through high school because I had a lot to focus on. I was really like, I had a lot to do at home too. We were living that rural lifestyle, chop wood, shovel the driveway, and sports and school. I had so much stuff to focus on. And then I got to college and I was kind of on my own and my schedules were weird. So I felt this depression coming back and I just fought it so hard in college. Like I totally just ignored the feelings that I was having and try to suppress them as deep as I could to where it kind of came out into a facial tic. And my friends could kind of see when I'm feeling like shit, feeling shitty. Not really the way I'm acting, but they could see like my friends said I like looked like I was in pain, which I was, but it was always like, no, dude, I'm fine. So yeah, I'm like, it's starting to creep up, to where I have to, where it's like oozing out of me through my face. But yeah, it caused some problems. But
what did weed smoking do for this? What did your experiences on ecstasy do for your depression?
Weed is a weird one. So weed for me, I have to kind of find that perfect strain, which in the beginning up there around the time it was like weed is weed. Like, can I buy some weed? Yeah, here's some weed. There was never like, oh, is this indica, sativa, yada yada. So sometimes weed would make me feel really good, but then there was times where weed would make me feel like the fucking worst. It seems like weed would bring out the worst in my depression sometimes, where it's just the constant negative thoughts that just like keep going and going and going and going. So I did realize that, like, okay, I'm not a day smoker. If I smoke during the day, it's going to kind of derail everything that I want to do. I'm not functional on it. But if I have a few drinks, then smoking weed is going to be great because I kind of have the alcohol that stops those thoughts, and then kind of the weed helping me relax, I guess. But yeah, I've always had a weird relationship with weed in that, because sometimes it does bring out just the worst of my depression.
You had mentioned that you came across shrooms, as you call them. Did that have any positive effect for you, or was it an event? Was it a bad event?
No, so I've never had a bad psychedelic trip, knock on wood. It just hasn't happened for me. And a lot of people, I don't know, it's something that has happened to a lot of people, and it scares the bad trip mentality keeps a lot of people from ever trying it in the first place. And that was like not everything was good in my head when I first tried mushrooms, so I was scared too. My first trip, let me just say my mom now is a super advocate of shrooms, and she's kind of left everything behind except for mushrooms and weed. And so when I was in college, she was still like, she's always super pro shrooming. She calls going to Bakersfield. Yeah, so I kind of had told my mom before that I was like, we're going to buy some shrooms and do it. And she's like, oh, cool. Well, call me if anything goes wrong, if you need to talk to someone. call me and we'll like work through it or whatever. And so we had bought some, can't remember where we got it, but yeah, we all sat around in the kitchen and divvied it up between us, and I had no idea what to expect. It was during the first debate between Obama and Mitt Romney, and we had that on the TV. And yeah, we all ate all these shrooms, and we're at my house where all my roommates are, and there was like 10 of us, and we all did them. And yeah, I just remember sitting there getting nervous. Then I go outside, and I didn't have any really profound experiences my first time. It was all just kind of, we were just giggling so much, could not stop laughing. One thing I do remember is realizing, like, we were watching the debates and looking at Mitt Romney and just seeing these flames behind him, and like his face was like tinted red. And I was like, yeah, not that guy. that stuck with me afterwards. I was like, I think Mitt Romney's evil. But then all of a sudden, so we're in the backyard, fucking around, rolling around in the grass, being dumb, being real goofy, and then a bunch of people come over to our house who were not people we partied with. They were people like we'd invite over if we were studying something, and they just randomly showed up, and we're all on shrooms, and they don't know anything about shrooms. So I'm like, I just felt this huge rush of anxiety come over my body. Like, I need to get out of here. And I went in my room and locked the door, because they were all kind of like, what are you guys doing? You're what? And felt super weird. So I locked myself in my room and sat there alone and just watched my curtain kind of melt and go back up my wall. Well, it was a blanket I had nailed over the window, and called my mom. And I'm like, Mom, I'm tripping real hard right now. And just hearing her be like, oh, honey, just have fun. Just remember, it's going to be over in a few hours, and you won't feel any of this. And just be weird and embrace the weirdness. And like, that's exactly, I've kind of kept that mentality since hearing that my mom say it the first time I was on shrooms. I've kept it now, and I'm 26 now, these years into my life. And it really is like, no matter how bad you feel, if you're feeling bad on shrooms, it's like, it's only going to be a few hours, and everything's weird. It's weird because you're on shrooms. That's why. Yeah, so that was my first one, and kind of after that I realized, oh, this is like, that wasn't scary at all. I had so much fun, and I can't believe it's something that just grows out of the ground.
I don't think many people have the experience of taking mushrooms and getting high and then calling their parents to help them through the trip. So it's a weird juxtaposition to consider your upbringing and the trauma that your household entailed. The good times, there were good times, but you had said there's a lot of bad times. And then you have this experience later that seemed to actually, at least temporarily, take you out of any depressive state and this feeling of elation and having so much fun. And it was a result in part of your mother, one of the people that were involved in this kind of traumatic childhood.
Yeah, that's a big thing I'm working through in therapy right now. Is I've always thought of, because throughout all the bullshit and all the terrible shit that I saw and all the like bad times that I have, the one thing that's kind of been consistent is my mom loves me more than anything. She says I'm her, almost to a fault sometimes, to where it's like she tells me these things that I know are a bad thing that I shouldn't hear, but like, if anything ever were to happen to me, myself, my mom says she would kill herself after that, and I'm the best thing that she's ever done, and she kind of puts me on this pedestal, but which I'm working with on my own. But it's just like the one thing that I have always known is my mom loves me more than anything. So I can kind of talk to her about whatever is going on, and I know that she's been through worse, I guess, or done worse, or at least experienced it, has some knowledge that I can talk about.
This episode was produced by me, Philip Johnson. All songs used can be found in the description section of this episode. If you liked what you heard today, and you want to hear more, please subscribe. Also, rate and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. If you're interested in getting a sneak peek at upcoming episodes, be sure to follow Psychotropic on Instagram at Psychotropic Podcast, all one word. If you're interested in supporting the show, either through purchasing a t-shirt or becoming a patron, or if you just like to write in and share a story or tell me what you think, you can do all of this at psychotropicpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next time.